The world operates on a simple truth that most people refuse to acknowledge. Power flows to those who understand the game, not those who pretend it doesn't exist. While the masses cling to fantasies of fairness and justice, the truly dangerous individuals master the art of psychological control through strategic silence and focused action. They understand that in a world built on hidden agendas, the naive become casualties and the strategic become rulers. You are here because you sense this truth. You recognize that success belongs not to the loudest voice in the room, but to the mind that calculates while others react. Today, we explore how to weaponize silence, how to control perception through restraint, and how to achieve your objectives without ever revealing your hand. This is not about becoming evil. This is about becoming tactically sophisticated enough that you are never again defeated by your own innocence. Most people mistake silence for weakness. They believe that power must announce itself, that influence requires volume, that control demands constant demonstration. This fundamental misunderstanding is your greatest advantage. While they exhaust themselves through endless chatter, revealing their strategies, exposing their vulnerabilities, and broadcasting their intentions, you will learn to operate from the shadows of restraint. Strategic silence is not the absence of communication. It is the mastery of it. Every word you do not speak is information you do not surrender. Every reaction you withhold is leverage you maintain. Every impulse you control is power you accumulate. The average person hemorrhages influence through their inability to contain themselves. They explain when they should observe. They justify when they should calculate. They react when they should respond with precision. Consider the last conversation you had with someone seeking to manipulate you. Perhaps they were fishing for information, testing your boundaries, or attempting to provoke an emotional response. If you engaged immediately, if you felt compelled to defend, explain, or counter their moves, you were being controlled. The moment you react predictably, you become a tool in someone else's strategy. But when you master the art of strategic silence, you reverse this dynamic entirely. Silence forces others to fill the void. Human psychology abhors uncertainty, and most people cannot resist the urge to elaborate when met with quiet attention. They will reveal more than they intended, expose motivations they meant to conceal, and provide you with intelligence they never realized they possessed. Your restraint becomes their confession. Your patience becomes their vulnerability. But silence alone is insufficient. It must be paired with focused observation. While others speak, you must learn to see beyond their words. Watch their body language when they think you are not paying attention. Notice what topics make them uncomfortable, what subjects energize them, what fears drive their decisions. People broadcast their psychological blueprints constantly, but only the disciplined mind learns to read them. Every individual you encounter operates from a predictable set of motivations. They seek pleasure, avoid pain, crave recognition, fear rejection, desire control, and dread insignificance. These drives create patterns, and patterns create opportunities for those skilled enough to recognize them. The person who needs constant validation can be managed through strategic approval and withdrawal. The individual driven by fear can be guided through carefully planted concerns. The one obsessed with status can be directed through appeals to their ego. This is not manipulation for its own sake. This is tactical awareness applied to human interaction. In professional environments, personal relationships, and social dynamics, you are either influencing or being influenced. There is no neutral ground. The question is whether you will master these dynamics or remain subject to them. Machiavelli understood that appearances often matter more than reality. People respond not to who you are, but to who they perceive you to be. This gives you tremendous power because perception can be shaped, controlled, and weaponized. Through strategic silence, you become mysterious. Through focused action, you become formidable. Through careful restraint, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is perhaps the most powerful psychological weapon you can possess. When people cannot read you, they project their own fears and desires onto you. They assume you possess knowledge you may not have, influence you may not wield, and intentions you may not harbor. This projection works in your favor, creating a psychological advantage that requires no actual resources to maintain. Your silence becomes their imagination of your power. Your restraint becomes their assumption of your capability. but psychological control through silence requires perfect emotional regulation. You cannot afford to be triggered, baited, or provoked into premature revelation. Most people are emotional reactors, responding immediately to stimuli without consideration of consequences. Their anger makes them predictable, their excitement makes them careless, their fear makes them manipulable. You must transcend these limitations through disciplined self-mastery. Emotional control begins with understanding your own psychological triggers. What topics make you defensive? What accusations provoke immediate response? What fears drive your decision-making? These are your vulnerabilities, and until you master them, others will exploit them. The individual who can remain calm while others lose composure holds every advantage in any interaction. Practice observing your emotional responses without acting on them. When someone attempts to provoke you, notice the physiological changes in your body, the thoughts that arise in your mind, the urges that demand expression. Then choose your response based on strategic value rather than emotional impulse. This single skill will transform your effectiveness in every area of life. Strategic silence also requires perfect timing. Knowing when to speak is as important as knowing when to remain quiet. Words deployed at the right moment carry exponential impact compared to the same words spoken prematurely or too late. The strategic mind learns to recognize these moments, to feel the psychological temperature of any situation, and to strike with verbal precision when maximum effect can be achieved. Sometimes silence creates pressure that makes others reveal information they intended to conceal. Sometimes it generates respect by demonstrating self-control. Sometimes it creates fear by suggesting hidden knowledge or capability. And sometimes it simply conserves your energy while others exhaust themselves through pointless verbal combat. Each situation requires different applications of the same fundamental principle. Focused action complements strategic silence by ensuring that when you do move, your efforts create maximum impact. Most people scatter their energy across countless trivial pursuits, achieving mediocrity in everything and mastery in nothing. They react to every stimulus, respond to every demand, and attempt to satisfy every expectation. This diffusion of effort guarantees weakness. The Machiavellian mind operates differently. It identifies the vital few objectives that will create disproportionate results and focuses relentlessly on achieving them. Everything else becomes secondary, disposable, or irrelevant. This laser-like concentration allows you to achieve outcomes that seem impossible to those operating with scattered attention. Focus requires sacrifice. You must be willing to ignore the urgent in favor of the important, to disappoint some people in order to dominate your chosen field, to say no to countless opportunities so you can say yes to the ones that matter. Most people lack this discipline, which is why most people remain powerless despite their constant activity. When you combine strategic silence with focused action, you become a force that others cannot predict, counter, or control. Your silence conceals your intentions until you are ready to reveal them through decisive action. Your focus ensures that when you do act, the results are undeniable. Your restraint makes your eventual moves carry greater psychological impact. This approach transforms how others perceive and interact with you. Instead of seeing you as reactive and predictable, they begin to view you as calculating and dangerous. They become more careful in their communications, more respectful in their approach, and more concerned about your true intentions. This shift in dynamic gives you substantial leverage in every relationship and situation. But mastering psychological control requires understanding the deeper motivations that drive human behavior. Most people are not moved by logic, facts, or rational arguments. They are moved by emotions, fears, desires, and social pressures. The individual who can identify and influence these deeper drivers holds the keys to human behavior. Fear is perhaps the most powerful motivator. People will go to extraordinary lengths to avoid losing what they have, to prevent embarrassment, or to escape anticipated pain. When you understand what someone fears most, you possess tremendous influence over their choices. This does not mean threatening them directly, which would be crude and counterproductive. Instead, it means understanding how to frame situations, present options, and structure interactions in ways that naturally guide them toward the decisions you prefer. Desire operates similarly. When you understand what someone wants most, recognition, security, status, pleasure, control, you can position yourself as either the path to achieving it or the obstacle preventing it. This positioning gives you significant influence over their behavior without requiring any direct manipulation. Social pressure represents another powerful lever. Most people desperately want to fit in, to be accepted, to avoid being seen as different or wrong. When you understand the social dynamics that influence someone, you can work with or against these pressures to achieve your objectives. Sometimes this means aligning yourself with their desire for acceptance. Sometimes it means making them fear social rejection if they do not comply with your wishes. The key to ethical application of these principles lies in understanding a fundamental truth that most people refuse to acknowledge. Everyone is already using them, consciously or unconsciously. Every human interaction involves elements of influence, persuasion, and psychological maneuvering. The difference between the sophisticated and the unsophisticated is not whether they engage in these dynamics, but how skillfully they do so. Most people use these principles crudely, obviously, and catastrophically ineffectively. They threaten when they should suggest, creating resistance instead of compliance. They demand when they should inspire, generating resentment instead of enthusiasm. They react when they should calculate, revealing their weaknesses instead of concealing their strengths. They broadcast their intentions when they should maintain mystery. They argue when they should listen. They push when they should pull. They speak when they should remain silent. By mastering these dynamics, you are not becoming manipulative in any unethical sense. You are becoming sophisticated enough to compete with those who are already manipulating you. You are developing the psychological literacy necessary to navigate a world where influence flows constantly in all directions. You are learning to speak the hidden language of human interaction that everyone uses but few acknowledge. Consider the reality of your daily existence. Every advertisement attempts to influence your purchasing decisions. Every politician seeks to shape your voting behavior. Every colleague competes for resources, recognition, and advancement. Every romantic partner negotiates for their needs and preferences. Every friend influences your social choices. Every family member shapes your emotional responses. You exist in a constant field of influence attempts, most of which succeed because you remain unconscious of their operation. Professional environments provide endless opportunities to apply these principles with devastating effectiveness. The colleague who constantly interrupts meetings, dominating conversations and stealing credit for others' ideas, can be managed through strategic silence that makes their behavior more obvious to others. Instead of arguing with them directly, which only provides them with the conflict they crave, you simply stop providing the resistance that makes their interruptions feel necessary. Your silence becomes a spotlight that illuminates their rudeness for everyone to observe. The boss who thrives on drama, who creates artificial crises and feeds on the emotional chaos they generate, can be influenced by refusing to provide the emotional reactions they crave. When you respond to their manufactured urgency with calm professionalism, when you meet their emotional volatility with steady composure, you starve their drama addiction and force them to find their stimulation elsewhere. Your emotional stability becomes their psychological anchor, making you indispensable to their functioning. The competitor who seeks to undermine you through gossip, sabotage, or political maneuvering can be neutralized by never giving them the ammunition of your defensive responses. When you refuse to defend yourself against their attacks, when you remain mysteriously unaffected by their provocations, you rob them of the satisfaction that fuels their behavior. Your lack of reaction makes their attacks appear petty and desperate to observers, ultimately damaging their reputation more than yours. The client who attempts to manipulate you through unreasonable demands, emotional manipulation, or threats to take their business elsewhere can be managed by maintaining professional boundaries with unshakable consistency. When you demonstrate through your behavior that you cannot be pressured, rushed, or intimidated, they must either respect your terms or find someone else to victimize. Your strength forces them to treat you with the respect they reserve for those they cannot control. In each case, your power comes not from what you do, but from what you refuse to do. You refuse to be predictable in your responses, making it impossible for others to manipulate you through their expectations of how you will react. You refuse to be reactive to their provocations, maintaining your emotional equilibrium regardless of their attempts to disturb it. You refuse to be controlled by others' agendas, pursuing your own objectives with single-minded focus despite their efforts to distract or derail you. This refusal, maintained consistently over time, transforms how others see and interact with you. They begin to recognize that you operate according to your own internal logic rather than external pressure. They understand that you cannot be rushed, intimidated, or manipulated through conventional means. They realize that interactions with you require a different approach, one based on mutual respect rather than attempted domination. Strategic silence and focused action also provide powerful protection against the sophisticated psychological games others play. When someone attempts to manipulate you through guilt, making you responsible for their emotional state or past suffering, your silence prevents them from getting the emotional response they need to maintain control. When they try to manipulate you through anger, using their volatility as a weapon to force compliance, your calm refusal to be intimidated neutralizes their primary tool of influence. When they attempt to manipulate you through fear, painting catastrophic pictures of what will happen if you don't comply with their demands, your focus on verifiable facts rather than emotional speculation allows you to evaluate their claims rationally. When they try to distract you with trivial concerns, urgent but unimportant matters designed to prevent you from pursuing your real objectives, your disciplined focus allows you to stay on target despite their interference. You begin to recognize manipulation attempts before they succeed, developing the psychological equivalent of an immune system that identifies and neutralizes influence attempts automatically. You see through emotional appeals to the self-interest beneath them, recognizing when someone's apparent concern for your welfare masks their desire to control your behavior. You identify when someone is trying to rush your decision-making, creating artificial time pressure to prevent the careful consideration that might lead you to refuse their request. You notice when someone attempts to isolate you from other perspectives, discouraging you from seeking additional opinions or information that might contradict their narrative. You recognize when someone creates artificial urgency to prevent careful consideration, claiming that immediate action is necessary when delay would actually serve your interests better. You observe when someone uses selective information sharing, revealing only the facts that support their position while concealing those that might lead you to different conclusions. These recognition skills, combined with the discipline to respond strategically rather than emotionally, make you extremely difficult to control or exploit. You become like a martial artist who can see attacks coming before they land, positioning yourself to avoid or counter them effectively. Your psychological sophistication provides protection that naivety never could. The most sophisticated practitioners of these principles understand that true power often requires appearing powerless, that genuine strength sometimes manifests as apparent weakness. When others see you as harmless, non-threatening, or incapable, they reveal information they would otherwise conceal, take actions they would otherwise avoid, and make mistakes they would otherwise prevent. Your apparent weakness becomes their actual vulnerability, creating opportunities that direct confrontation never could. This principle applies across countless situations with remarkable consistency. In negotiations, appearing less interested than you actually are often leads to better terms because the other party, believing they hold all the leverage, becomes careless about protecting their own interests. In conflicts, seeming less capable than you actually are often causes opponents to underestimate your resources and abilities, leading them to make strategic errors based on incomplete information about your true strength. In relationships, appearing more dependent than you actually are often generates protective behaviors that serve your interests, as others invest more heavily in your welfare when they believe you cannot survive without their support. In professional settings, appearing less ambitious than you actually are often reduces the defensive behaviors of colleagues who might otherwise work to block your advancement. In social situations, appearing less informed than you actually are often encourages others to reveal their true thoughts and intentions, believing they can manipulate someone they perceive as naive or uninformed. In financial matters, appearing less wealthy than you actually are often leads to better treatment from service providers and protects you from those who target the obviously prosperous. But this approach requires tremendous self-discipline and emotional security that most people never develop. You must be comfortable with being underestimated, misunderstood, and occasionally dismissed by those who mistake your strategic restraint for actual limitation. Your ego cannot require constant validation or recognition from external sources. Your sense of self-worth must come from internal rather than external sources, remaining stable regardless of how others perceive or treat you. This psychological independence is what allows you to play longer-term games while others remain trapped in short-term thinking. While they seek immediate gratification, recognition, and validation, you can sacrifice short-term satisfaction for long-term advantage. While they react to immediate circumstances, you can maintain focus on ultimate objectives. While they reveal their capabilities and intentions prematurely, you can conceal your strength until the moment of maximum effectiveness. The development of these capabilities is not quick or easy, requiring years of consistent practice, careful observation, and brutally honest self-assessment. You must learn to notice your own patterns of reaction and response, recognizing the psychological triggers that cause you to abandon strategic thinking in favor of emotional reaction. You must identify the specific ways you are currently being manipulated, acknowledging the influence attempts that succeed because of your psychological vulnerabilities. You must develop the ability to respond with increasing sophistication over time, gradually replacing automatic reactions with conscious choices. Each interaction becomes an opportunity to practice restraint, to gather intelligence about others' motivations and methods, and to refine your understanding of human psychology through direct observation and experimentation. Start small with low-stakes situations where failure carries minimal consequences. Practice strategic silence in casual conversations, resisting the urge to fill every pause with words or to respond immediately to every statement or question. Notice how others respond when you become comfortable with silence, how much more they reveal when you listen more than you speak. Pay attention to the psychological dynamics that emerge when you refuse to be predictable in your responses. Observe how people react when you don't provide the expected emotional responses to their provocations, complaints, or dramatic stories. Watch how they adjust their behavior when you remain mysteriously unaffected by their attempts to generate specific reactions. Notice how your silence creates space for others to reveal information they would normally keep hidden. Gradually increase the stakes as your skills develop and your confidence grows. Apply focused action to one significant area of your life, sacrificing everything else to achieve mastery in that domain. Notice how concentration of effort produces results that scattered activity never could. Observe how others respond when you become formidable in your chosen field, how their treatment of you changes when you demonstrate genuine competence rather than mere ambition. Practice maintaining your strategic focus despite others' attempts to distract you with urgent but unimportant matters. Develop the discipline to pursue your long-term objectives consistently, even when others pressure you to abandon them for short-term opportunities or to address their immediate concerns. The ultimate goal is not to become cold, calculating, or emotionally disconnected, but to become strategically aware and tactically sophisticated while maintaining your essential humanity. You want to understand the game being played around you so you can participate effectively rather than being used as someone else's pawn. You want to develop the skills necessary to achieve your legitimate objectives in a world where naivety is often punished and sophistication is consistently rewarded. You want to maintain your capacity for genuine emotion, authentic connection, and ethical behavior while developing the psychological armor necessary to protect yourself from those who would exploit these qualities. You want to become someone who can be trusted by those who deserve trust while remaining invulnerable to those who would abuse it. Remember that everyone you encounter is operating from their own agenda, pursuing their own interests, and using whatever influence they possess to achieve their goals. This is not cynicism, but realism. People are not evil for having self-interest, but you are naive if you ignore this fundamental truth about human nature. Your choice is not whether to engage in this reality, but whether to engage skillfully or clumsily, consciously or unconsciously, effectively or ineffectively. Those who refuse to acknowledge these dynamics do not become more ethical or pure. They simply become more vulnerable to those who understand and apply them without scruple. Your sophisticated understanding of influence and persuasion allows you to protect yourself and others from those who would use these tools for genuinely harmful purposes. Strategic silence and focused action provide the foundation for tactical sophistication in human interaction, creating a platform from which all other influence skills can be developed. They allow you to gather intelligence while revealing nothing, to influence outcomes while appearing passive, and to achieve your objectives while letting others believe they are achieving theirs. These are not the tools of evil, but the weapons of wisdom in a world that rewards strategic thinking over naive honesty. When you master these principles, you will find that power flows to you naturally, not because you demand it or manipulate others to obtain it, but because you demonstrate the competence to wield it effectively and responsibly. Others will seek your approval, value your opinion, and respect your judgment, not because you require it or because you have manipulated them into these responses, but because your restraint and focus make these responses inevitable. People are naturally drawn to those who possess genuine strength and sophistication. They instinctively respect those who cannot be easily influenced or controlled. They value the opinions of those who speak rarely but meaningfully. They trust the judgment of those who demonstrate consistent self-discipline and strategic thinking. The world belongs to those who understand it as it actually is, not as they wish it were, or as they have been taught it should be. Strategic silence and focused action are your keys to joining their ranks, to transcending the limitations of reactive thinking, and to achieving the influence that comes from tactical mastery rather than tactical ignorance. Your silence will become your strength, providing you with information and advantages that constant talking never could. Your focus will become your weapon, allowing you to achieve objectives that scattered effort makes impossible. And your strategic sophistication will become your shield against those who would use your naivety, good nature, or emotional reactivity against you. This is not about becoming someone else or abandoning your essential nature. This is about becoming the most effective version of yourself in a world that rewards competence over good intentions, sophistication over naivety, and strategic thinking over emotional reaction. You can maintain your ethics, your compassion, and your authentic self while developing the psychological tools necessary to thrive in complex social and professional environments. The choice is yours, and it is a choice you make every day through your actions and responses. You can continue operating with the same patterns that have limited your influence and made you vulnerable to others' manipulation, or you can develop the psychological sophistication that transforms how others perceive, respect, and respond to you. The principles are here, tested by centuries of human experience. The path is clear, marked by those who have walked it successfully before you. Your success depends entirely on your willingness to master yourself before attempting to influence others, to develop internal strength before seeking external power, and to become strategically sophisticated while remaining ethically grounded. Think strategically, act decisively, speak selectively, and watch as the world reshapes itself around your newfound tactical sophistication.